Live television is usually a carefully controlled environment where producers and anchors try to stick to a script and keep everything running smoothly. But sometimes the unexpected happens, and cameras end up filming things they shouldn't have. Because the footage is shown live, viewers see the events in real time without warning. These are 4 of the most disturbing moments ever aired live on TV. Case 1. David Horowitz hostage situation, 1987. David Horowitz was a well-known face for many people watching TV in Los Angeles. He worked as a reporter on KNBC TV and was known for helping people. On his show, Fight Back, he tested products, exposed scams, and made sure companies were treating customers fairly. People trusted him. On February 14, 1987, he was getting ready to film a normal segment at the Channel 4 studios in Burbank. During a live afternoon broadcast, a man quietly walked into the set while the cameras were rolling. His name was Gary Stolman, and he got past security by pretending to be the son of someone who worked at the station. He was holding what looked like a real gun and walked straight over to Horowitz's desk. Without yelling or making a scene, Stolman pointed the gun at Horowitz's back and told him to read a message out loud on live TV. At first, the crew wasn't sure what was happening. Was it a joke, a planned skit? But when they saw the look on Horowitz's face, they knew it was serious. He suddenly stopped what he was doing, asked Stolman for the paper, and calmly put on his glasses to start reading the message. The message was strange and confusing. Stolman talked about secret government plans, mind control, and the CIA. He said people were being replaced by clones and that he was being watched. He believed that the only way to warn the public was by going live on TV. After several tense minutes, the situation finally ended. After the text was read, a security guard got close enough to stop Stolman, who gave up peacefully. The gun, it turned out to be a BB gun, a fake gun that looked real. Stolman was arrested right away and taken for a mental health evaluation. In court, his lawyers said he had serious mental health issues and was very paranoid. Stolman had a long history of mental illness and believed that the media was part of a plan to hurt him. He was sent to a psychiatric hospital and charged with several crimes. Later, Horowitz talked about the incident. He said he had been extremely scared, but felt he needed to stay calm to protect the people around him. He believed that reading the message without panicking may have saved lives. In an interview, he said, "It was the most frightening moment of my life. I didn't know if he was going to shoot me on camera." One second, people were watching a regular news story. The next, they were watching a hostage situation live on television. Case 2. Bud Dwyer suicide, 1987. On January 22, 1987, many people across Pennsylvania turned on their TVs to watch what they thought would be a normal press conference. The man speaking was Robert Bud Dwyer, who had been the state treasurer of Pennsylvania since 1981. He had worked in politics for almost 20 years and was known as someone who took his job seriously and handled state money carefully. But behind the scenes, Bud Dwyer was going through a very difficult time. A month earlier, he had been found guilty in a federal case. The case was about a $4.6 million contract meant to help manage the state's employee retirement system. Prosecutors said that Dwyer had taken a bribe to help a company in California called Computer Technology Associates win that contract. Most of the evidence came from men who had already made deals with the court and agreed to testify against him. Dwyer chose to go to trial and said he was completely innocent. Being found guilty was a huge blow. Dwyer was facing a sentence up to 55 years in prison and a fine of $300,000. His official sentencing was set for the next day, January 23rd. But instead of waiting to go to court, Dwyer held a press conference at the state capitol in Harrisburg. He invited many reporters and told his coworkers and family that he wanted to talk about what would happen next. At exactly 10:30 a.m., reporters arrived at a small room filled with folding chairs and TV cameras. Most people believed Dwyer was going to say he was resigning. That's what usually happens when a politician is found guilty. But it quickly became clear this wasn't a normal press conference. Dwyer stood behind the podium and began reading from a written statement. His voice was calm, but you could tell he was emotional. He spoke for more than 20 minutes. He talked about how the justice system and the media had treated him. He said again and again, that he was innocent and that the trial had been unfair. He blamed the government for putting pressure on witnesses to lie. He also said the whole experience had caused a lot of pain to him and his family, especially his wife and children. As he kept speaking, the mood in the room changed. Dwyer pulled out 3 large envelopes from under the podium. He gave one to his press secretary, one to a staff member, and kept the last one. Then, from the final envelope, he took out a .357 Magnum revolver, a large handgun. Everyone in the room gasped. Some reporters jumped up. An aide tried to rush forward to stop him, but Dwyer moved back, waved them away, and said, "Please, please leave the room if this will affect you." Then, before anyone could stop him, Dwyer put the gun in his mouth and pulled the trigger. Dwyer fell backward and collapsed onto the floor near the podium. The TV cameras, which were rolling, recorded the entire thing live. People screamed. Some reporters ran to call for help. Others stood frozen in place, unable to believe what they had just seen. Emergency crews were called, but there was nothing they could do. But Dwyer died at age 47. Some TV stations had been showing the press conference live, while others had recorded it. A few even aired the full footage, including the moment he died, before editors had time to cut it. Later, the 3 envelopes Dwyer handed out were opened. One had his organ donor card. Another was a final letter to his wife, Joanne. The third was a long message for the press, where he explained why he took his life. In it, he said he had hoped his death would make people pay attention to how unfair the justice system could be. Case 3. Allison Parker and Adam Ward shooting, 2015. On the morning of August 26, 2015, 2 young journalists from a local TV station called WDBJ7 in Roanoke, Virginia, were getting ready for a normal live news segment. Allison Parker, 24 years old, joined the morning team not long before and was quickly becoming a favorite among viewers. Working beside her was Adam Ward, 27, a camera operator who filmed many of the station's reports. He was engaged to another reporter at the station, and people said he was friendly, focused, and kind. That morning, Allison and Adam were doing a live interview with Vicki Gardner, a local business leader from the Smiths Mountain Lake area. The segment was part of a morning show called Mornin', which usually covered fun community events like festivals and local stories. They were standing on a beautiful boardwalk by the lake, with shops, trees, and the rising sun behind them. At around 6:45 a.m., the broadcast began. Adam's camera zoomed in on Allison as she smiled and began asking Vicki questions about local events. But just seconds later, something terrible happened. Gunshots suddenly rang out. Allison screamed. The camera dropped and kept recording as it fell. For a moment, a man dressed in dark clothing holding a gun appeared on the screen. Then the station quickly cut back to the studio, where the anchor looked shocked and didn't know what had just happened. The attack had happened live on TV with no warning at all. It was later confirmed that 7 shots had been fired at Allison and Adam from just a few feet away. Allison tried to run, but was hit several times. Adam, who was holding the camera, was also shot. Both of them died at the scene. But the tragedy didn't end there. The shooter was soon identified as Vester Lee Flanagan II, a former reporter at WDBJ7 who had used the on-air name Bryce Williams. Flanagan had been fired from the station in 2013 after several problems with coworkers. People who worked with him said he was often angry and difficult. He had accused coworkers of treating him unfairly, saying he was discriminated against for being black and gay. But his complaint was later dismissed. After he was fired, he blamed many of his problems on the people at the station, especially Adam Ward, who had filmed the video of the argument that led to his firing. Police rushed to the scene. Meanwhile, Flanagan escaped in a rented car and drove north on Interstate 81. But while running from police, he took things even further. He used his phone to film the shooting from his own point of view and uploaded the video to Twitter and Facebook. The video showed the exact moment he raised the gun and shot Allison. Many people saw the clip before social media sites were able to take it down. Flanagan also sent a 23-page document called a manifesto to ABC News. In it, He said he was inspired by other mass shooters, including the one from the Charleston church attack a few months earlier. He claimed he had been mistreated at work and said his actions were revenge for what he believed were years of unfair treatment. At around 11:25 a.m., police found Flanagan's car on Interstate 66. When they got close, they saw that he had shot himself. He was taken to the hospital, but died later that afternoon. Case 4. The Challenger Disaster, 1986. On January 28, 1986, millions of people across the United States, including many schoolchildren, sat in front of their televisions to watch something exciting. NASA was getting ready to launch a Space Shuttle Challenger into space. What made this launch special was that for the first time, a civilian, a teacher, would be going to space. Her name was Krista McAuliffe. She was 37 years old and taught high school social studies in New Hampshire. NASA had chosen her from more than 11,000 teachers who had applied to be part of the Teacher in Space program, which was meant to inspire students and show that ordinary people could become astronauts too. Krista had become a national figure. She had been on TV shows, visited schools, and even recorded lessons she planned to teach from space. She was going to fly with 6 trained NASA astronauts: Francis Scobie, Michael Smith, Judith Resnick, Allison Onizuka, Ronald McNair, and Gregory Jarvis. Their mission, called STS-51L, included science experiments and launching a satellite. The launch had already been delayed a few minutes because of technical problems and bad weather. On the morning of the 28th, it was very cold at the launch site in Cape Canaveral, Florida. Only about 30 degrees Fahrenheit, -1 degree Celsius. There were even icicles on the shuttle's launch tower. Some NASA engineers warned that the cold might make parts of the shuttle unsafe, especially rubber seals called O-rings, which help keep the booster rockets tightly sealed. But the managers in charge decided to go ahead with the launch. At 11:38 a.m., the Challenger took off. At first, everything seemed fine. Cameras from CNN and other major networks showed the launch live. But then, just 73 seconds later, something went terribly wrong. Viewers saw a flash of fire near the base of the shuttle's right booster rocket. Then came a huge explosion. A cloud of smoke and fire filled the sky, and pieces of the shuttle began falling. Some people thought it might be part of the launch plan. Everyone realized this was a disaster. Even inside NASA's control room, there was confusion and silence. Then, a NASA spokesperson quietly said, "Flight controllers here are looking very carefully at the situation. Obviously, a major malfunction." The truth was heartbreaking. One of the O-rings on the right booster rocket had failed because of the cold. Hot gas leaked out and damaged the fuel tank. The shuttle didn't blow up like a bomb. It broke apart in midair because it couldn't handle the stress. The crew cabin separated and fell into the ocean. All 7 astronauts died. NASA later found out that some of them might have survived the breakup at first, but there was no way to survive the fall when the cabin hit the ocean. The video of the disaster was shown again and again that day. News reporters struggled to explain what had happened. For the first time ever, people had watched a space disaster happen live on TV. People across the country were heartbroken. Schools canceled classes. The astronauts' families, who had been watching from nearby, were in shock. That night, President Ronald Reagan canceled his planned speech and instead gave a message to the nation. He called the crew pioneers and said they slipped the surly bonds of Earth to touch the face of God. A full investigation began right away. A special group called the Rogers Commission, which included famous scientist Richard Feynman, looked into what caused the accident. They found that NASA had received several warnings from engineers about the O-rings and the cold weather, but those warnings were ignored. In one memorable moment, Feynman showed how dangerous the cold was by dipping a piece of rubber into ice water during a public hearing. It became stiff and brittle, just like the O-ring that failed. As a result, the Space Shuttle program was shut down for nearly 3 years. NASA worked on redesigning parts of the shuttle and making new safety rules. The families of the Challenger crew created the Challenger Center for Space Science Education, which teaches kids about science and space, something Chris and McAuliffe had always dreamed of doing. Thank you for watching this video until the end. Let us know which of these you remember, and if you were in front of your TV witnessing them live. Stay safe, and we'll see you in the next video.